10, 9, 8. Go for main engine start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, we are ready to put the final touches on the Sasha, and I've got the launch lugs here that we are going to put on the rocket itself. And what we're going to do is, they actually are supposed to be cut in half, and then you use only 3 of the 4 that will come up with. So let's start with that and measure this out. They are exactly 2 inches, so we want 1 inch. We'll just mark before we cut the 1 inch mark. Okay, get a little closer view here, and we'll get these things cut up. Now, got to be careful about cutting these because you don't want to crush them. So what I like to do is I just take a really sharp blade, and I'm going to put it down on the tube perpendicular and just roll it back and forth. And if the blade is sharp enough, it should eventually cut through the actual tube without crushing it. Now you could also just take the knife and pierce it if you want to. You can also use a saw. Let's try that real quick. Might actually make life a little easier. So we're going to take the piece, find our line, and then gently just let the saw do the cutting. Don't push on it because then it'll crush. Okay. And we'll just draw the knife one direction. And this seems to be making the cleanest cut, I think, of all the different ways we can do it. Then I'm going to take my sanding stick, the coarse grit, it's about a 220, and I'm just going to straighten it out and then clean it up. So we want the end really cleaned up, and we'll do the other ones and have 3 of them ready to go. Okay, one thing that I actually looked at, I tried the other launch lug, just cutting it with a knife, and it cut a lot cleaner. The saw made it a little jagged and the paper started to tear. Sanded it a little bit, but it's a little rough. I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, it's pretty rough. And I don't want this to fray or tear, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little super glue down, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this up as much as possible with a wet Q-tip, moist Q-tip. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just dip it in the super glue and then wick it off, and then using the Q-tip again, clean out the inside. That way I don't have any bumps on the inside of the super glue. But yeah, it's basically what I'm going to do is just try to cap that, and once it's dried, then I will sand it a little bit and make sure that the inside is holding well. I kind of wish they gave an extra one, or actually if I had it to do over again, I would buy the Estes tube set, launch lug set, and just make them all long. So let's get rid of those fuzzies, move that around. I can do this with epoxy as well if I wanted to. Okay, so we'll let that dry, and then we'll have those capped and we'll be ready to put them on. Okay, got those lugs set. I sanded down the super glue on the ends because it was kind of bulged out, and then that way it'll lay flat against the rocket. And I'm going to make sure, I'm going to find the flattest area I can on them, and then I'm going to make that the area that gets glued to the rocket. I'm just going to draw a line That way there's no problems, even though they're sanded pretty well. But just want to make sure they're flat. You just don't want to sand all the way through them. And I know these are lightweight and all, but I kind of wish they made them out of a little heavier material because they tend to fall off. Hopefully the epoxy technique will prevent that. Okay, so I've got the launch lug line marked here. They are talking about putting the, let's see, the first one, the back of the lug is 6 inches and the other one is at the end of the rocket. So what we want is 6 inches from the back of the rocket, which is right there. Okay. Now one thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to start doing this with the fins too, I'm going to start roughing up the tube, the body tube, with some heavy sandpaper. These are sanding sticks that I sell on my Mouseworks website, and they come as a pack. Have a little cushioned sanding pad on them. These work really good for doing just exactly what I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roughen up the surface of the tube. That way it gets a little more grip. Just as a little bit of insurance. And I've got some of that glue that I used to make the fillets. This will actually sand that down and give it something to grab right there. I just don't want to take any chances with the lugs. So basically one lug is going to fit here. One lug is going to fit at the back, actually at the back of the rocket, and then there's one that fits on the actual booster stage. So we will take the back here and we're going to roughen up that area there. All right. Makes it nice and easy having a tool like that. Okay. So now I'm ready to put the lugs on. I'll put the forward one on first, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually put them in with a little epoxy. This time I'm going to use the epoxy that's in the 2-bottle pour version, and it'll make life a little easier, so we'll get those open. Okay, I've got the epoxy open. I'm going to take some of the main part A, and this I can do smaller amounts and hopefully keep it a little cleaner on the actual tubes themselves. Just don't cross-contaminate, otherwise one will start drying the other. Okay. Okay. Take my toothpick and we'll start mixing them together. Now this is a 30 minutes, so it is going to take a lot longer to dry, but it should be stronger and easier to work with if I have to do let it settle in the cracks and so forth. I won't have the drying problem. Okay. Take my tube, which I've also sanded, roughened up. We'll put some of the epoxy on there. Good swath, just make sure you don't cover up the holes. And I'm going to place it with the back at the mark. Okay, I'm going to set it in there. And that should take a little while to start to tack up, and then we can actually add some epoxy to the fillet in the next step, and I will attach the other lugs. Okay, to make sure these lugs are going to line up, I'm actually putting a piece of brass rod through there to make sure that it's laying even, and that way the launch rod will go through these evenly, because there's going to be 3 of them. It's going to be really critical that they line up. So we'll do that and then let it dry. Okay, the epoxy is dry on the tubes, the launch lugs, and that seems to, this 30 minutes seems to hold a lot stronger, so it doesn't stay gooey. Anyways, using the brass rod to make sure everything's lining up okay, and it's lining up on the baseline, so should not have a problem with the launch rod going through there. So if it does, we'll just use a smaller launch rod. So anyway, so now I'm ready to do the fillets, and we'll put some of the glue down again. Okay. Again, equal amounts as best I can. Those look pretty equal. And we'll mix them together. And yeah, I think I like this epoxy much better, dry wise and strength wise. It's, like I said, the 5 minutes stays sticky for a long time. Not sure what's up with that, but maybe that's just the property of 5 minute epoxy here. Okay. And we will take the rocket here, and we are going to just work in to the fillets a bead of the epoxy here. Just making sure it doesn't go into the tubes itself. Go everywhere but into those tubes. Okay, put some on the other side here, and this is just going to reinforce it and make it a little more aerodynamic. Okay. And next I'm going to smooth that with the isopropyl alcohol and see how that looks. Okay. It seems to be holding. It's a pretty thick, gooey, about the consistency of honey. So we can add a few layers on here. Make sure we got plenty. Okay, now I'm going to take my Q-tips and dip them in the isopropyl alcohol, 91%. I'm going to just smooth that out and just get it as smooth as possible so it's looking good. Making sure I don't get any in the where the tube is or on the side where the launch rod is going to go. So make sure I clean that out. Okay. Okay, so I'll finish this little bit here. I'll do the other launch lugs, and that is going to be about it for this rocket, and we'll do a final assembly next. Okay, my launch lugs are on the rear, the front, and then the one that's on the actual booster stage. And when I attach this, just be careful in attaching it, making sure the fins line up from here to here, and then that should make the launch lugs line up. So take my rod, put it through here, through the other lug, and it should basically slide all the way through without getting hung up. So we've got a real smooth, pretty even launch lug system. So hopefully that'll work on the bigger rods. And that is almost it. So let's do a final assembly. We got all this part here done. See the launch lugs there, all reinforced with the epoxy. And so let's take the nose cone. We're going to take the parachute protector and the parachute itself, and let's just pack it in there, and that way I have my parachute and everything in one rocket ready to go. So I'm going to first take that booster stage off. Now this part here is not glued on yet. I'm going to actually glue that after I paint it, because I want to paint this silver, and it's hard to get in there and mask it. So I can paint it silver, just make sure I don't get silver paint on the edge here, and we'll glue that in as the final after painting assembly. Okay, so we're going to put that over here. We'll take the rocket, dump out the cord. Okay, got the cord. What we're going to do is put the parachute protector on here. Already cut that hole like I showed earlier. Let's take our swivel and we'll put it through. And like I said, this will be the way I pack it when I'm ready to go launching. First flight I might put a little wadding just in case. I've never used one of these parachute protectors, but I just want to make sure it works correctly. So I'm going to loop this around. Okay. And we're going to tighten that a little bit, just making a loop so this parachute protector does not move up and down. Okay, I'm going to take my parachute itself and unwind it. Okay. We're going to take that. Now here's something different that I'm doing. And originally I said and showed that I was hooking both of these parachute and rocket to this hook system right here. Well, I just figured by logic, if this breaks in flight, I'm going to lose everything. The parachute's going to go one way, rocket's going to go the other, fall without a parachute, and this is going to go another way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually hook the shock cord on here. We'll reattach it here. Okay. But then the parachute I'm actually going to attach not to the cone but to the other swivel, like so. And what that's going to do is that's going to, actually we'll put it through the lower hole here. What that's going to do is if the cone breaks off, that little plastic piece snaps, I still have a parachute that's going to be attached to the rocket, and the rocket will come down, and I'll just have to buy a new nose cone or find the nose cone. So that way it is a lot more secure than the other way I showed. So, okay. So we're going to take our parachute protector and our parachute, and we're going to basically open the parachute here, and we're going to wiggle the parachute cord in here, just looping it back and forth, letting it lay where it wants to. Okay, that way it'll unfurl smoothly. And then I'm going to roll the parachute up on that cord. Okay, now I'm going to actually put this in the parachute protector, and for that I'm going to actually go crossways, fold this up, roll it just a bit, fold these sides up, making the burrito, and then continue to roll. Okay, and then we can actually put the parachute in here, then take all the cord, and we're going to stuff the cord down in there as well, just doing it gently so it doesn't get tangled. And this will deploy like when we did the test with blowing through the tube. So I've got that all snugged in there. Cone on, tail fin on. Okay, it's getting exciting. we actually have our Sasha rocket complete. We've got everything on there. We've got the strakes, we've got the fins with all those pointy spikes, which I got poked by quite a bit as I was building. I got the launch lugs, and I got the tail fin, got the engine mount, business end. All right, so this rocket build is complete except for painting and gluing on that rear fin or rear nozzle piece, but everything else is ready to go. It is a beautiful rocket. I am very happy to build this. Looks awesome. I hope it survives my launching, because I do want to keep it for a while as a scale model. But kudos to Estes in this design, and love it. Just loved every minute of it. So hope you enjoyed the video. I hopefully will post the painting of this, priming and all that. It's gonna be a shame to paint all this fancy woodwork here, but maybe I'll build another one that's gonna look like it's made out of wood. So anyways, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to ring the bell so you get all the updates. And I will also show the launching of this whenever I get to launch it. Unfortunately, there's the COVID-19 going on, so nobody's doing nothing. I hope you're all safe, and I hope you're in your modeling room building stuff and taking it easy while this all blows over. So thanks again, and be sure to visit MouseWorks and keep on building.